Next method in line to use for dodging and burning is the one that uses the soft light blend mode as well as the brush tool. Now we can use it to affect the image in pretty much similar ways as we would with the use of the native dodge and burn tools. But we're going to use a blend mode soft light. And before I show you exactly how all of this works on an actual image, I wanted to go over this example where I would show you the more illustrated way, simple way, what blend modes are and how exactly does the soft light blend mode work within the context of dodging and burning and how we can take advantage of it. As you can see, I have blendmodes.psd file already opened. Now this is the file I created mainly for demonstration purposes, so you can either open it if you want to work along with me, but it's really not necessary. You can just watch and I will allow you to understand what exactly does the soft light blend mode do. So let's begin. In the layers palette I have here a background fill layer which represents the background. It's actually a solid color adjustment layer which allows me to shift the color on the fly. So if I just double click on it, it will open up the color pick allowing me to choose any color. The reason why I say this is not a locked background layer. If it were, then blend modes would not be available for me. They will be dimmed down, and as you can see here they are dimmed down right now because I don't have any layers selected. If this was a background layer that was locked, I would have the same problem. But if I have a layer, even background layer, which is not locked, then blend modes become available. First of all, what are blend modes? Well, in more simple terms, blend modes are used to blend two images or more images together based on an algorithm that's associated with the particular blend mode that we choose. That's pretty much it. And we can use it in more creative ways than you can count. I mean, there's just so many uses for them throughout Photoshop and throughout the retouching process. It's just ridiculous. And of course, one of the ways we can use them is to simulate the dodge and burn process. And that's what I wanted to focus on. So let's see how they're divided. If you go to your layers palette, choose any layer that's not locked, and you can now switch between different blend modes. Now, if you can take a look, they're divided by this line into different categories. And the first one, the normal one, that's pretty much like having your blend modes off. Dissolve serves for, I guess, dissolving the edges of your layer, and I haven't found any real practical purpose for it. It's probably used for some kind of special effects or something along those lines. These batch of blend modes here, they will darken your image. These ones will lighten your image. These ones that are interesting to us right now, they will increase the contrast of your image, and every one of them except this hard mix one at the bottom, all of them will also ignore 50% or neutral gray color. These ones are used to basically see the difference between two different layers, two different images, allowing you to reposition the image, to align it better, to just compare it, to see the differences and things like that. And these bunch of blend modes down here, they're pretty much self-explanatory. Hue, saturation, color, and luminosity. That's what they affect. What we're interested in, soft light and overlay. But overlay not so much, mainly soft light. So let's see how they work. Now I've also created some examples which I grouped here. Example 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if I twirl open one of those examples, like example 1, I will activate the layers. Now you don't need to worry yourself about what layers did I create, because they're not really relevant for the demonstration purposes. Just watch what happens on the image. What I did was I created this batch of swatches here. The burn swatch, the natural 50% gray swatch, and the dodge swatch. And of course they're also black and white for burning and dodging. This one on the bottom is the one that I created because when I apply the blend mode to this one above, I will kind of see them in a different way, so I wanted to give you a reference point to what they were originally. And markings, they just represent the letters. Now let's see how they work. I will go to my color fill soft light 3 swatches, and I will now switch between normal to soft light, the one we're interested in. And if you take a look, you can see what happened. Just like I told you, 50% gray, and this was once gray, remember, that became invisible. Essentially, it blended with the background perfectly. Now, the white color here essentially didn't change the background color, but it lightened it. It essentially dodged it. And the black color did the exact opposite. It darkened the background. Now, here's an interesting point. The background layer could have been any color, or any image for that matter. The reason why I didn't use any image is because images are not usually homogeneous, so that means that there will be just a bunch of distractions. And it's hard for me to demonstrate with equality what white and black colors do when you set them to soft light. So I choose just one color for the background, and I could have chosen any other color. The reason I chose the blue color is because I think it's pleasing for the eye, and it separates these colors pretty well from what I wanted to show you. I think it's a better way to illustrate my point. But if I double click on the background layer, I can change it to any color, just to illustrate the same point. As you can see, it always just darkens or lightens the background. It doesn't change the color. And I could even switch it to 50% gray color, and if I do that, watch what happens. the neutral gray color completely blended with the background to the point that we are now not seeing it at all. It's like nothing is here. And the burn area, the black area, just darkened the background, and this area just made it more light. Let me cancel out of that. So that's what I wanted to show you. That's how soft light mode does. It ignores 50% gray color, and everything that's darker than that, it essentially uses to blend with the background layer and increases the luminosity values. And the same thing does with but the opposite direction with the lighter colors. Now, these need not be white or black. They could be any different colors, but I will show you in one of the other examples how that works as well. So that was example number 1. Now example number 2, at first glance it looks exactly the same. The only difference now is that I have here separated the swatches into solid color adjustment layers. The reason why I did that, so I can, just like the background, I can choose a different color for each of them. And to illustrate what I mean, you can see that now I can change the color of this on the fly. Currently they're set to normal blend mode. What I'm going to do is switch it to soft light, each of those swatches. And now this looks familiar right from the last example. Now let me show you what happens if I change the color of any of these. Let's switch to black, for instance. If I switch the color from black to less black to more gray, I'm still not changing the color of the background. It's just using the soft light blend mode to blend this color with the blue background to just darken the color. Now if you go in this axis, vertical one, you can switch between completely black to completely white. And in the middle of this, where this says 50%, we have 50% gray or neutral gray color, and then it completely blends with the background. Now as you go over to this area, you are starting to add not only lightness, you're starting to add some color to it. So let's see what happens if I stick to 50%, but I add more color. Actually, let's go all the way to the end of this color picker. See what happened. Now first of all, I didn't change the lightness because I stayed at 50%. All I did was change the color. And the color I did was it blended the red color with the blue background to give us violet color. I think that's referred to as violet. Could be. It's not pink. Has to be violet, I guess. My English is not that good. Anyway, if I go up, and before I do, let me go back where I was, and on this ramp I can switch between different hues. So let's turn it to green. The same thing happened. I didn't make this patch any darker or lighter, I just made it a different color. Actually, I blended the green one with the blue one to create this, I guess, teal or turquoise color. But I'm going to go to my red color so you can better see the example. If I increase this here, you can see what happens. Now I'm not only affecting the color, I'm also affecting the luminosity values, because this is not at 50% anymore. It's not in the middle of the ramp. And I can do the same thing here. Maybe yellow, so you can see how that blends. Now the reason why I wanted to show you this is that when you're using this next method, you're using your brush tool to paint, but you not need use just the black color or the white color. You can also use different colors, and that will affect the image underneath differently. So it's not just dodging and burning, it's a bit more than that, and that's what I like about that technique. And we'll see how we can take advantage of this when we start dodging and burning with this technique on an actual image. Let's get to example number 3. Now here what I did was I created another example, only this time I used a gradient. And the gradient also has the burn area, the natural gray area, and the dodge area. The only difference is that it's not made up swatches that are kind of separated. They're just a smooth gradient. And if I switch it to soft light, you can see what happens. At first glance, the natural gray color appears not affected, like nothing happened really. And the burn tool, the burn area became darker as we would have expected. Dodge area became lighter. But the problem is that the natural gray color is actually only present in this small patch, maybe a couple of pixels. On this side it becomes darker, on this side it becomes lighter. That's why this whole area that used to be invisible is not invisible anymore. It gradually goes to the darker area or a lighter area. And I wanted to show you this on a swatch. On the gradient. And this is also a gradient fill made up as adjustment layers. So if I double click on it, it will allow me to choose between different styles, like radial one, and it's dark in the middle, it's white here at the edges. You can of course revert that. Maybe reflected one or diamond one, and you can see how the soft light actually uses those the gradient as well as the background to kind of blend them in different ways. But I think linear gradient presents the example in the best, more simple way. Let's switch to example number 4. Here I wanted to show you that there is a bit of a difference between soft light and overlay blend mode. Now, usually when people dodge and burn using this method, sometimes they will use either soft light or overlay. The reason why I don't like to use overlay in almost any case is because it's just too harsh. I want to use soft light because it gives me more, I would say, subtle transitions, and it's not shifting the color as much as I would get by using the overlay mode. To illustrate this, I will soft light gradient mode, I will switch it to soft light, and it happened exactly what we would expect to happen. On this one, the overlay, I'm going to switch it now from soft light to overlay. Now overlay also ignores the 50% gray area, and the only difference is that it does add not only more contrast. It doesn't only make the areas darker, it also shifts the color a bit. Not too much, but it does shift it a bit. And that's what I don't want to do, because remember when I showed you in the last video, when dodging and burning, one of the side effects is that we do get color shifts. So why would we want to introduce some even more color shifts? We will have to deal with them later, and that will just give us more work. So using the soft light is more a subtle approach, the one that I would like to use. Let's switch to 50% gray layer filled with 50% gray. That's the one we're going to be using when doing the actual dodging and burning. And I'm going to switch to my brush tool now. I'm going to set my hardness to about 0%. I'm going to make it like maybe 45 pixels. Let me give you an example. I'm painting with black color now, and what's going to happen is that I now applied the black color to the gray layer, which was the background, right? But if I switch it to soft light, it's now interacting with the background layer, and what it did, it did exactly as one of the examples that I showed you, right? It completely turned the gray, 50% gray area invisible, and where I painted with black, it darkened the background, but it didn't change the color, because black, it's colorless, it's just luminosity value. And if I now switch with my X key for exchanging swatches to white color, and I paint now with white, I'm doing the dodging effect. But if I were to switch to another color like red and now paint, I'm getting that same effect. But remember, like I showed you in that example, it not only affects the luminosity, now it blends the colors into something that creates basically a third color. And if I change this to green, only this time maybe darker, you can see how it reacts with the background. And how exactly we can use this more effectively in an actual image, that's something I'm going to show you in the next example.